Hello everyone, Lunar Warfare. Welcome to the third episode of the Chaos Report, the weekly or bi-weekly Path of Exile series that will focus on the economy of the Softcore Challenge League. In this episode, I'll be taking a look at our watch list and we'll be covering different farming and crafting strategies that you can apply to take advantage of the current build meta and league mechanics. As always, do keep in mind that these are educated guesses or predictions, and as such they might not be entirely accurate. Furthermore, I might miss a thing or two that seem obvious to many, and for that I apologize. It is hard to cover everything after all. In conclusion, invest at your own risk. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's get started. To start off with, let's take a quick peek at our unique item watch list and how those items have shaken out since last week, as well as their potential trajectories in the future. Our watch list currently features 7 unique items, but during this video we'll be adding and removing a few as well. First up, the combination of jewels, Transcendent Flesh and Tempered Flesh. Our predictions for those two have proven to be pretty much 100% accurate. The Tempered Flesh has slightly risen to about 20 chaos as a very solid, very cheap option for every duelist or marauder to get a nearly free 75% crit multiplier. I don't foresee a further jump pretty much throughout the entire league, but due to the common quality of it, we'll keep an eye on it for another week or two just to make sure. The upgraded Transcendent Flesh, however, has continued its stellar rise and leveled out at about 2 Exalted Orbs or an equivalent of 240 chaos at this current time. The price for this one seems to be rather steady for the past few days, and I would expect it to stay roughly around this range for at least a few weeks. One quick side note, if you are diligently running your temples, you might want to pick up a copy of the Tempered Flesh, as well as a vial of Transcendence for your T3 sacrifice rooms. Instead of throwing in your belts and hoping for the 1 in a million chance to get your beloved Headhunter, you can guarantee yourself a solid 200 chaos profit for each run instead. This is due to the price of the vial of Transcendence being at a steady 30 to 40 chaos for multiple days. I would definitely recommend investing here. It's a superior effort to profit margin as even Breachstones are, including Chayla. Moving on to the Carcass Jack, we can see that our predictions from last week have mostly come to fruition, as it has continued its descent into the 20 chaos area. Most players have been deciding to switch over to fossil crafted Elder Armors instead due to the potential for the 7-link setup. As most players also do not require the increased area of effect at this point in the game, I do not foresee any future jumps in price for this one. I still predict that it'll level out at some point, though I'm gonna lower my predictions to a 10, 15 to 30 chaos range potentially, from our old 20 to 40 chaos range, as it still offers especially new builds a solid starting point to get into higher tier mapping and speed clearing due to its increased area of effect stat. Following that, Duresso's Salute has dropped rapidly over the past few days. I'm not entirely sure why this is the case, as we had predicted it to stay rather relevant for at least a week, due to more and more slayers reaching the point where it becomes worthwhile to wear. This is definitely a case where I knew that the rep was going to happen at some point, of course, but it happened faster than I anticipated. My assumption is that people have moved on from it as a crutch, similar to the Carcass Jack, onto more endgame options such as the Shaper or Elder Amulets, which simply offer a more versatile and powerful portfolio of effects. As such, we'll see a big oversupply of this item, since many people have started moving on already, so its price will continue to drop in the future as well, barring any unforeseen events. A result, the rest of Salute will be removed from the watch list and will not be covered in future videos, but I'll still keep an eye on it and keep you updated if anything changes, of course. Similar to last week, Rithalis' Coil is continuing to prove as one of our best predictions since the pre-launch. Remember, this spell didn't even crack 20C during the entirety of the last league, including the first days. Now, however, we're seeing prices upwards of an Exalted Orb or an equivalent of 120 chaos for decent rolls. As we stated last week, the cause for this is quite simple. More and more people are realizing the power of pure physical builds and the Impale mechanic, and as such, this belt provides the highest potential DPS increase in the belt slot. Also similar to last week, a quick recommendation on how to farm it. One of the only semi-guaranteed ways to acquire this belt is by farming the Wretched Divination card. At this point, it might be worthwhile to do so, if you can manage to find a map that you would like to run and that happens to drop this card as a byproduct. If you plan to do so, Tower is still one of the 2 lucrative maps to shape your atlas around, as it also drops the Nurse, which is one of the Headhunter Divination cards. Though this one has been nerfed in the patch, it is still quite valuable to farm. The other option I would personally consider is Primordial Blocks, as it's the most open of the maps that can drop the Wretched. This is obviously a positive for the current League mechanic, as the Legion mobs spawn in a more manageable way if the map isn't divided by about 1,000 walls, randomly existing doors, and dead ends. I'm looking at you, Cells map. As a general trajectory, I would imagine this spell to drop a few dozen chaos in price, but stay steady at around 70 to 100 chaos for the next little while at the very least, especially very rolled ones. Moving on to everybody's favorite flask, the Lion's Roar. This flask has steadily been outperforming every single other flask in the game, save for the ever ridiculous Soul Ripper, of course. Since last week, it has seen a few bumpy days and has dropped over the past few rather drastically, mostly due to the majority of players already having acquired theirs and the supply not stopping. It'll continue to be the staple flask for this league, and as such will retain a moderately respectable price. A perfectly rolled Lion's Roar still goes for about 100 to 140 chaos for the most part as well. The same recommendations for farming this flask still apply. You'll be looking for the Earthdrinker Divination card, which can primarily be found in the dunes and desert maps. A little update since last week, however. Desert Spring map has been confirmed by multiple people and by myself as a wonderful alternative to dunes and desert. With the highest mounted count in the entire game and one of the most open layouts, this could prove to be a real hidden gem for farming purposes, specifically for the Lion's Roar as well. One downside you do have to keep in mind though, is that this league, the Desert Spring map is unfortunately a tier 15, which means you cannot reliably sustain it as an Eldred map. Well, because it will still drop the adjacent Guardian map, regardless of map tier and competition. The Paradoxica prediction has seen a gigantic leap in price over the last few days. I hope you guys took my advice to heart and didn't panic sell this one during its short dip into the below 100 chaos range. It has since skyrocketed to a ridiculous 270 plus chaos price point. This is likely due to more and more players realizing how insanely strong this weapon can be, with the new Berserker Ascendancy and all the free flat physical damage that is added by things such as the Skill Gem rework and the Rage Support Gem. Additionally, the Slayer's 8% base crit node is also a godsend for the Paradoxica, as it suffers in both attack speed as well as base critical strike chance. As such, two of the most popular ascendancies in the game are perfect choices for the weapon and contribute to its stellar price. For farming, the same rules still apply. Buy as many June-related mastery prophecies as possible and interact with the Immortal Syndicate every chance you get, as this is the only way to acquire this item. As for potential veiled mods on it, attack speed is still king for the suffixes, though impale and other percentage quality increases are also very worthwhile. Any attack speed option will usually outweigh any other option by a landmine, however. For the prefix, try to get the highest physical damage increase, as it still is the flavor of the league and will likely to continue to stay that way. As for future prices, I would imagine the Paradoxica will not stay at its current astronomical course. However, I will stick with my gut feel prediction of last week and say that the Paradoxica will likely not fall below the 100 to 150 chaos price range anytime soon either. It'll likely remain a strong contender for the remainder of the league. The last item on our old list, the Hemophilia gloves, have seen no notable changes since last week. They've remaining steady at the 7 to 10 chaos mark. I still stick by the prediction I made last week, that if and when GGG decides to fix the cope explosions for the Gladiator Ascendancy and other abilities, this glove could see a resurgence to its early league prices. Cautious investment is still advised. The first new item on our watchlist is an item that I somehow completely forgot about before the start of this league. The Calm's Heart Body Armor. Usually always a solid investment before pretty much any league, as it offers the highest base HP in the entire game, I somehow forgot to include it in my original predictions. Its price has been on a steady rise, with a slight uptick in the last day, indicating a potential further increase for the future. The reason for its popularity should be quite obvious. Players are back to using two-handed weapons, specifically Elder-crafted two-handed weapons. As such, they do not require the 6-link in the chest armor and can instead opt for the highest amount of life available on any chest. This particular item is my new farming target and has been providing me with quite some income in the last few days. I have opted to move my personal Elder setup to Volcano, one of only 2 maps in the game that offers not 1 but 2 Calm's Heart cards. Both the Pride Before the Fall as well as the King's Heart drop in this map rather regularly, especially once you've invested properly into your maps and atlas. Aside from Volcano, your farming options for this one are the natural T15 Caldera, which also drops both cards, as well as Lava Lake, which drops the Pride Before the Fall and also offers a good amount of return on your chaos investment by way of the Wrath card. Definitely a worthwhile investment to start farming this one, as the Calm's Heart will likely retain its value, barring any unforeseen circumstances throughout the entire league. The second and last new item on our watchlist will be the Nomad Studded Belt. This belt I also completely overlooked during the early days of the league, to be entirely honest, as it is such a specific belt which requires a lot of stat investment in both dexterity and strength, yet giving only specifically bonuses to physical projectiles. I simply didn't connect the dots that, yes indeed, ranged characters can use Impale as well. It's not a melee only mechanic. With the addition of the new Spectral Throw duo, Divide and Conquer, this item has seen a tremendous amount of use compared to any previous league. Previous leagues have seen this belt at anywhere from 3 to 25 chaos at the very end of leagues. This time around, however, it has seen a rather steady rise, as more and more people are becoming aware of the power it can provide to these very specific physical-based projectile builds, up to the current highest price of about 60 chaos. The only way to acquire this item is through the Grand Leader of the North prophecy. As such, if you intend to farm this one, I unfortunately have to disappoint you. The only possibility for you to properly acquire it would be to perma-spam prophecies until you hit it. We will, however, keep an eye on this item in the future, as it will give a nice representation of the current physical-based projectile meta. If it proves futile to further analyze this one due to either waning interest of players to pick it up, or simply due to players stopping to play with it, or it not changing at all, we'll likely drop it off the watchlist again. As a quick side note regarding prophecies, they should always be active on your character, and I would recommend buying silver coins when you run out. They are nice additional income, even though most of them are kind of irrelevant. They take barely any time to acquire, and can net a tidy sum depending on the prophecy. As such, always make sure you got a full prophecy wheel. You don't want to miss out on potential high value prophecies and the free extra quantity they provide for your maps. Now, moving on to our second segment, the meta analysis. As expected, we'll see that the majority of players had opted for the Slayer and Trickster ascendancies at a 42 and 21% respective each. This is due to the current two main meta skills, Cyclone being used by 48% of the entire player base, and e.g. Contagion being used by 68% of all Tricksters. This is a fairly large change to last week, as many players had still opted into the Berserker and Gladiator ascendancies. However, the Gladiator ascendancy has quickly fallen out of favor, due to the main selling point of the Gladiator, his bleed explosions, not working on the Legion mechanic. Players are currently scrambling to figure out the absolute best and fastest way to clear Legion monoliths, and as such, the Gladiator no longer has a place in the current meta. GGG has dropped the ball pretty hard with the implementations of on-kill and corpse explosion effects, I have to say. Once GGG fixes these particular interactions, however, I'm anticipating a big change in the meta regarding the viability of a lot of these ascendancies and skills, but for the time being, we'll continue our focus on Cyclone and ED Contagion when it comes to farming and crafting. Most of the recommendations from last week still apply, and as such I won't be repeating them here. Feel free to check out last week's episode for that. However, one quick update on my personal farming strategy from last week, the excavation map. I would highly advise against this setup, as I have pointed towards last week, as after testing it for about a week, the drop rate of the divination cards are absolutely abhorrent. Additionally, keeping a stable Elder in Shaper Ping Pong seems to be extremely difficult, as you cannot set up a reliable Elder Square. In conclusion, stay away from the excavation map for any farming purposes. The other recommendations from last week, however, still stand. If you're looking to farm base types, Sunken City, Summit, and Siege are still the maps of choice for Steel Rings. Basilica and Racecourse are still the maps of choice for Spiked Gloves. With that out of the way, we're going to be focusing on a new farming strategy that has come to my attention over this past week. A lot of players have recently begun hard farming the Legion monoliths and lower level maps to increase their clear speed. Maps such as Strand Dunes, as well as Alleyways and Glacier have seen big popularity for such purposes. Personally, I wouldn't recommend this particular way of farming, as the Legion monoliths rewards themselves scale with map tier. There are many rewards you simply cannot get in lower level maps, such as Shaper Fragments, Gilded Scarabs, and other high value loot, and this kind of farming will only reward you with raw currency. As such, you have no additional income outside of what the low level map provides in terms of raw currency and potential divination cards in the case of Alleyways, for example. A fellow content creator by the name of Slippery Jim 8 has recently posted his first findings after running 1000 Glacier map monoliths. At average, you'll receive 4 chaos per monolith at these levels. He did not provide any higher tier tests yet, but that might still happen in the future. I'll put a link to the video in question down below in the description as well. Check it out for yourselves if you want to see the exact breakdown. I would absolutely recommend it, as his content is simply fantastic. With a higher tier setup, such as a Shaped Atlas Elder Map farm, you will not only receive the highest possible monolith loot, but also receive highly sought after items such as Shaped and Elder Rings and Amulets, high level armor pieces such as the Astral Plate, but also receive other benefits such as high level master missions and high level map drops that you can also use as additional income if you are so inclined. In this league especially, it has been an absolute breeze to sustain any Elder T16 without much trouble. With the removal of the VAR cost for Zana's map mods on VALD maps, you can easily permafarm 100% plus quantity maps, as you simply get to VAL all of them and do not have to worry that you might not be able to pay for the Zana mods anymore. Specifically good maps for such a T16 setup are, outside of the recommendations from last week of course, Volcano, which is also my personal favorite as I mentioned earlier, and the one I have switched to from Excavation. This map drops 2 comms hard cards quite regularly, and as such can really boost your average income. Additionally, Eldred Bone Helmets are also among the possible drop table for this map, and they are still quite popular. Furthermore, the Legion encounters on this map are always at the same spot in a wide open area with a slight cliff. As such, leap slamming characters are advised, as well as characters that use dash or flame dash to make the best use of those encounters. City Square is another decent choice, due to its location on the Atlas providing cheap sextants, as well as its open layout and the possibility of dropping high-level 2-tone boots for crafting purposes. Carcass is my last lesser-known recommendation due to its amazing potential for div card drops, as well as its rather easy layout. While you won't make perfect use of the Legion mechanic because of the more indoor layout, for some characters, such as Whirling Blade based or movement speed based ones, this might be a prime choice, as it doesn't have any cliffs or holds to jump over and will cluster the Legion mobs more together for less AoE heavy builds. Just remember to properly invest in your maps through the use of sextants, chisels, and VAL orbs. Don't come yelling at me and telling me you can't sustain if you're simply alking going your T16 maps. If you require a guide on this particular part, aka how to invest in maps properly, let me know in the comments down below with what exact topic you would want me to cover. I'm always willing to add additional content to the channel if I know it will be useful to others, so let me know. Now for the last little segment, I always like to give some quick farming and or crafting tips for some lower econ players. First up, farming the Delve areas is still extremely profitable, especially with the Gilded Sulfite Scarab prices being the lowest they have ever been. It is extremely easy to get to decent depths and farm whatever areas you want to farm. I would recommend the Frozen Hollow as well as the Fungal Caverns. The first dropping an assortment of serrated and prismatic fossils. The second dropping perfect and corroded fossils. These are some of the most common yet high value fossils, and as such should be fairly easy to acquire for anybody, regardless of depth and luck. Also, always keep in mind to save them up for a small while until you have a bulk of at least 4+ fossils to sell. This will allow you to ask for even higher prices when you offer them for sale. As an example, I oftentimes sell 5 stacks of serrated fossils for over 140 chaos, despite their current value only being around 20 chaos. Using Hillock's T3 transportation crafts on higher value bases, such as eye-level 83 plus jeweled foils, can add a decent sum as well. People are paying upwards of 40 chaos for these bases to craft on, so they do not have to wait for their own Hillock to reach T3 in the transportation syndicate. Very easy money. Similarly to last week, Abyssal Jewels are still quite popular among players. I would recommend trying to roll primarily on searching eye jewels and going for more generalized rolls, more so than specific flat damage rolls for bows and wands. Focus on getting a moderately high life roll first and pair it with either a movement speed, attack speed, or critical strike multiplier roll. These are very easy to achieve in just a few alterations plus recalls and can net tidy sums for players that are struggling to make ends meet. Remember to buy some eye-level 82 plus bases, as they have the potential to roll the highest life roll. These bases should only cost you about 1 to 2 chaos at most, and net you anywhere from 10-15 chaos up to an exalt or more depending on the exact rolls. And with that last segment wrapped up, I'll be ending this week's chaos report. I hope this video was informative and you learned something from it that you can apply to your own game or made you think about it. Please let me know if I missed anything or you'd have wanted me to talk about anything in specific that I might not have covered. Also, let me know what your personal predictions are going to be for these coming weeks. Furthermore, Let me know if you'd like to see me cover a particular topic regarding Path of Exile. I'm always willing to explore new video types or add extra segments to this series, though this video is already pretty long, so I don't know about that one. Lastly, give me some feedback on this new series. How did you enjoy it? Was the video too long? Because I spent some time rambling on this one. Should I cut specific parts, such as condensing the first segment into less time? Or should I further elaborate on specific topics to give more insight towards specific things? And if so, which ones are these? And of course, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell notification thing, like or dislike the video, and check me out over on twitch.tv/Wolf. You can find a link to my stream down below in the description as well. And with that, thanks for watching, and keep farming those axles.